A very good afternoon to all my dear student friends. Indeed, it gives me a great deal of pleasure in taking your session too. So today, in continuation to our last class discussion, today we are going to discuss about the trade union structure and the leadership and its recognition. So after hearing this session, one will be able to able to understand the structure of the Indian trade union, how does it function, and that too at different levels. Apart from that also, one will be able to understand that how trade union structure at the national level and subsequently the national level, how they are all linked to the regional industry, how they are all linked to your plant level organizations. In addition to that also, one will be able to understand the problems of multiplicity of trade unions. And apart from that also, one will be able to analyze the future prospects of trade unionism. So to start with the trade union structure, if we look at the origin, the starting, the characteristics of the trade union movement, in fact, you'll find that the trade union movement vary across countries due to the very fact that the variation depending on the social compulsion, the variation depending on the economic compulsion of your industrialization. Apart from industrialization, also you have political factors, and in addition to that, also you have economic factors. And if you look at the institutional framework of the respective societies, they also do differ. Hence, I am of the opinion that one would come across a variety of bases, rather, I would say, for the formation of the trade unions. For example, if I look at the UK or your guild system, the occupation or the trade, they were the basis for the formation of the trade unions. But when I look at USA, it began with in fact, the formation of the local associations of skilled craftsmen, that is otherwise known as craft unionism. And subsequently, there was a labor movement and which developed slowly from the workshop societies to the local unions and subsequently to the city central bodies, which was also extended, which went on to your industrial unions, and from there the national union. That is how the transition took place. And finally, you will end up into your federation of unions. But however, a new model of your union structure emerged in the USA way back in 1990s, which is based on your geographical area, which is based on your occupations, which though are craft unions, no doubt about it, but without craft skills. On the other hand, if you look at in many of the European countries, like in Belgium, or you talk about your Denmark, or you talk about your France, or you talk about your Germany or Netherlands, one would find one thing that the trade unions were formed not only on the industrial plant basis or the occupational or the sectoral or the company or the plant basis, but also there are on religious dominations. So we have European Industrial Relations Observatory 2000 has is that. So in Japan, when we look at the trade unions are predominantly your enterprise unions comprising of both white collar And the blue collar employees belonging to uh, either one or more industrial unit rather than you can say uniting people for the purpose of uniting people of differing companies maybe doing the similar jobs. So in addition there are also other industrial unions, and we have seen that the national labor organizations in Japan, but the enterprise unions constitute the dominant framework of their union structure. So, as we have been discussing, various structural types of unions have emerged over a period of time. They are your craft or occupational unions, they are your industrial unions, they are your general unions. In fact, they are your, you can say that your enterprise unions, or there are state-sponsored unions. Apart from that, also you have national unions or the federations, you call them. So if you look at the features of these union, to start with the craft union or the occupational unions, it is an organization of workers, those who have been engaged in a particular craft, or those who have been engaged in a particular trade, or in a single trades or craft or related trades or related craft. So such organizations, they comprise of those workers who have, in fact, similar skills, and craft training, similar craft training or similar specialization. So these type of unions have emerged during the, I would say, pre-industrial revolution period for the purpose of controlling the labor supply, and for the purpose of improving wages. The logic behind the formation of the such type of union is that the skilled workers belonging to the same craft face similar types of problems. So, in spite of having a long existence in the United Kingdom, or you talk about USA, these unions, they did not, in fact, survive because of the impact what we have seen in the modern factory systems. So, with the advent of your factory system, crafts union, they began to be referred as unions of blue collars workers in most of the countries, what we have noticed. And these unions survived to improve their wages. And when we are talking of the wages, we find that not only wages, but also they try to improve their working conditions. And in fact, these unions, when we look at the craft unions, they are all found among non-manual employees and professional workers. For example, which can be a crane drivers association, if you are talking of, or pilots association, or stenographers association. So one of the advantages of this craft union is that they provide the farm some kind of basis for the purpose of solidarity of the unions. So natural bond of common interest uh, will be there. The natural bond of friendship will be there, and apart from that, also you have mutual respect among the members belonging to a particular craft that will ensure intensive, I would say, solidarity. And if we look at the industrial union, so we find that an industrial union is an organization of workers, no doubt about it, and which covers all categories of the workers in any one industry, regardless of the differences in craft, regardless of the differences in the skill, regardless of the differences in grade or position. So if we look at the membership strength of an industrial union is normally large in comparison to the craft unions. So with the increased, you can say, mechanization and going for mass production at the beginning of the 20th century, industrial unionism became a very dominant model. So initially, though, the formation of these unions were registered by the craft unions, but in the USA or we talk about in UK. But subsequently, a number of industrial unions emerged in many countries, including in the same USA, in the same, I would say, UK. So, in many respects, today we find that the industrial unions have the advantage over the other types of union because industrial unions in a particular industry can cover the interest of all categories of workers, and that too in a single agreement with the employer. And further to that also, the industrial unions, which consist different categories of workers. We have skilled, we have semi-skilled, we have unskilled. So they bring out some kind of homogeneous organic groups, and they create a feeling of solidarity among the workers. So a major weakness of the industrial union is that these unions, with a majority of the members being unskilled workers, evidently may not be able to meet the specific needs and protect the interest that which we are more concerned about it, the more interest of the skilled workers whose number is relatively small. Similarly, when we look at the general unions, general union is one whose membership covers workers employed in many industries. And when we look at the employment in many industries, in many employments, and in many crafts altogether. So such unions thus cut across the boundaries of occupation. They cut across the boundaries of industry. So you will have the general unions are ideal for the purpose of solidarity point of view. But however, it requires a very high degree of consciousness among the workers and those workers representing various industries, maybe to form this type of union. So when we look at the growth and that to the growth, the service sector and consequent, there is increase in employment. That is also considered to instrumental to become instrumental for the purpose of emergence of your white collar or general unions in most of the countries. In addition to that, also we have enterprise unions, and these are the unions which are formed at the enterprise level, cutting across craft, cutting across occupations. So enterprise, they assure that there should be a lifetime employment make, and it may that because lifetime employment will make the employees tied to the enterprise, as a result of which both the labor and the management, um, the purpose will be to focus on harmonious relation because in every occasion there is a conflict, there is a tussle between the relationship of workers and the management. So hence, most of these unions are organized without any resistance for either the employer or from either employer side, the resistance will not be there, or from the state side. And most of other unions in the Western countries, now, however, were very much apprehensive of the enterprise unions because of their narrow focus, because they lack wider solidarity. So this is a dominant form of unionism, no doubt about it, in Japan, so far as Japan is concerned, where nearly all the unions that we are talking of in the country, representing the vast majority of the unions, they are of enterprise level. So if we look at the state-sponsored union, these types of union, I am of the opinion, they are prevalent in the socialist countries. And centrally, you have planned economies and also in the authoritarian regime or the military regimes. Because in the socialist and centrally planned economies, When we look at the state organization and the state organization unions, they aim at how best we can integrate the role of the unions in fulfilling the objectives of the state. On the contrary, or on the other hand, in the authoritarian or you can say military regimes, it is for the purpose of repression and denial of trade union rights or the human rights. However, in many of these countries which have gone through the process of transition and the transition resulting into democracies, transition resulting into competitive authoritarian regimes. So these unions still have, I would say, remained the dominant workers' organization despite few internal reforms and despite few regional versions. So they continue their authoritarian legacies, which to influence labor policies or the labor politics in new democracies. In addition to that, also we have got national unions, national federations. As we are talking of trade unions, generally, as trade unions, they try to realize that in a competitive business environment, most of their problems cannot be tackled on their own. So that is why they always associate themselves to form large and that to central trade unions or the trade union federations, but both they will mean the same things at the industrial level, at the national level, and at the international level. So, in all these cases, when we look at the labels, these are the federations which combine the workers' union and that too either horizontally or vertically or on the basis of some kind of political ideology. And this is with a view of how we can have better coordination among themselves because the British Trade Union Congress and the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, which are, I'm of the opinion, national federations. And that too, they are the examples of national federations, examples of horizontal structure of unions. And there are also vertical federations which are separate for blue collar workers and the white collar workers, like in Sweden. They have TCO, Confederation of Professional Employees Association. They have LO, the Trade Union Conference of Blue Collar Workers. So likewise, the All India, I would say the Port and Dock Workers Federation. So all these things, federation functioning, the Mazdoor Federation, they are functioning in India, and they are the examples of your industrial federation operating at the national level, industrial federation operating at the regional level, both the level respectively, and which are horizontally structured unions. So World Federation of Trade Unions or the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions, they are in fact the examples, rather I would say, they in fact they are the examples we can say of your international level federations. And these federations are loose associations, the individual unions which are affiliated to the international body. No doubt they retain the real power and enjoy maximum autonomy due to their direct and you can say day-to-day contact with the rank and file workers. Now, from this, let us try to come to the trade union structure in India. While studying this trade union in India, that means Indian trade unionism, where one attempts always to analyze the structure of Indian trade unions. So in that case, one would find the prevalent diversity of the basis on which primarily the primary unions have been formed, and what is their interrelationship to the hierarchical order of the movements. So apart from your multiplicity of, you can say, trade unions today, what we have, but at the same time, for the maybe for the same jurisdictions, and they split along political lines, making the situation complex. So the existence, when we talk about of a variety of bases, and whether the existence on the basis of the plant or the existence on the basis of employment, or the resistance on the basis of industry, or the resistance on the basis of your craft. And in all these occasions, one has to see that how best we can make the task of analyzing the structure of the Indian trade union movement doubly complicated. So an attempt has been made, no doubt about it, here to describe what would be the pattern underlying the structure of the Indian trade union. So whatever the picture, the picture that is going to emerge. So the picture that emerges, though you are talking of not uniformly having representation, giving an idea of the structure of the trade union movement in India. So these unions may function independently and on their own, and they may subsequently get affiliated to the regional federation, or they may get affiliated to the national federation, which may not be affiliated to the state branches of the central federation of the trade unions. But one thing that is sure, that the primary union may also be directly affiliated to any of the central federation or the state branches of central federations. So the structure of the Indian trade union that can be discussed under three heads. One head is primary unions at the base. Then you have industrial federation. Then you have central federations. So if we look at the primary union at base, the primary union are the basic units of the structure of the Indian trade unions. So they are in fact the nearest to the workplace. They are the nearest to the workers. What they do, they recruit their membership, and they run the local office, which are maintained, which maintain the closest, I would say, touch with the union members, and they conduct several industrial discussions, and they conduct industrial disputes. And when we are talking of the industrial disputes, they are all being organized on a variety of bases depending upon the concrete local situation, depending upon the concrete local problems. So the basis of the primary unions, in fact, are to diverse as to preclude any sort of attempt which has been made at a systematic classification. So primary union, when we look at in India, they fall under three categories in order, you may say, in order of their numerical importance. So first is your industrial unions, and the second is your general information required, and the third is your crafts union. Now coming to the primary union of the industrial type, so in the Western countries, what we have seen, while the craft unions herald the emergence of your trade union movement, it is the plant of the establishment of, or the establishment of your labor unions which mark the advent of the movement in India. So if we look at the national level, and in the initial stage of industrialization, you will have typical industrial worker mostly being skilled or workers at best semi-skilled, but didn't had a very strong crafts base. So you will have migratory, and when it is a question of migratory, obviously we look at the nature of the union from industry to industry. How does it vary from the industrial area to rural area, vice versa. So these are all acquired. If you could acquire any kind of degree of specialization to form the crafts union, maybe for their own protection. So in addition to that, the outsiders who provide, in fact, the number of, you can take it as impetus, a number of impetus so that you can take things further ahead. So this is for the purpose to organize the workers, focusing on the common interest of the workers as a whole and the spirit of the national freedom movement and the spirit of the anti-employer speeches. That is all facilitated to the workers and those who have been coming together to unite themselves in industrial unions or at the plant or at the establishment levels. So further, the concentration of the certain industries in a particular locality, if you go for, you'll find that there is a provision of industrialization legislations in certain provinces. They give rise to industry region-based um, unions. And the primary union of the industrial type thus may be classified on the basis of either it can be your plant level industrial union or it could also be your regional level uh, industrial unions. So in this case, if we look at the primary level industrial unions or primary level of industrial establishment or establishment of the India in level union. So here what is going to happen that the plant level industrial unions, they're the most, I would say, uh, common form of unions under the category of the industrial type, primary unions. And such unions cover a single plant, such as either it can be factory or it can be mine or it can be your plantation. So the membership in this union is open to all citizens, employees working in these units of employing. So this would happen cutting across the cutting across their craft, cutting across their occupations. So therefore, they are primary unions. They are all called plant level industrial unions, and the majority of the trade unions functioning in India, if we look for the other aspect, they belong to this category. However, uh, I am of the opinion that there are many organizations, there are many establishments which are engaged in different set of activities and providing which employment maybe the people who are supposed to be employed, but they are not covered on the farm industry. So there may be organizations to be social services. So in both the cases, we have to see that how best they contribute the very purpose for which the plant level industrial unions have been formed. Similarly, if you look at the regional level, industrial level union, many of the uh, unions of this type and those whose membership is open to all, uh, if they are employed in a particular industry, then what is going to happen? The industry, suppose located in a particular day and for a particular region. So if we look at, in such cases, though the basic industrial, but the unions of this type differ from former in that they cover another aspect of employees in the whole industry, in particular, keeping in view the particular neighboring locality. So, in this case, we have seen that there are Girni Kumar Union, which was located in Mumbai, can be taken as an example of this type union, and such unions are generally larger in size, and such unions generally try to propose the day-to-day, what should be the day-to-day operations. May have their branches of factory committees for each factory, and that too in the industry. That means industry, taking into consideration the industry, the aspect covering the industry. The another type is your primary unions, and when we are talking of primary unions, they are general type of union, and which may be grouped to two categories, namely either employer come level, local level general unions, or the local level general unions. When we talk about the priority, the primary focus of the general type which have emerged, that too in a single, emerged in a number of industries belonging to one owner, and that too very much located in the same location as the employer come local level is concerned. So these are all general unions, and these unions, when we look at, they cover all the employees, those who are working in a variety of industries owned by one employer and located, might have been located in many places. So, for example, we are talking of your Rohtas, you workers union, and this Rohtas workers union functioning in Dalmia Nagar, having a cluster of industries, such as you have cement, you have sugar, and you have people, you have different sort of chemicals, and putting said asbestos, hydrogenated oils, which are owned by the Rohtas, um, and it is also evident that the common employer and the common place of work, in spite of the diversity of the industries, always we have promptation. What type of promptation we have got? So you see, prompts the worker to form common union, and if the industries would see that something good will happen, obviously in that case, the industry has to take a call on that. But however, there could be many general unions at the local level, and that too covering not only the number of industries but also a number of employers. And these type of unions are called your local level general unions. And if these general unions work well, obviously the workers, those who have been employed in different industries, which are owned by different employers, that altogether but located in the same location, state, city. So what do? You join to form a common union. So if you look at Jamshedpur, in the Jamshedpur, you will have labor union, Jamshedpur labor union, located at Jamshedpur. This can be taken as, you can say, example of this type of union. Because Jamshedpur local unions, they draw its membership from a variety of industries located in Jamshedpur, covering the gigantic company from the steel industry and the engineering industry from the industry could be taking into consideration the cable, the tube, even the locomotive, the tin plate, the wear products, everything. Now coming to the primary unions of the craft type. So in that case, the employees having belonging to a common craft, when they join together, they form something, some kind of union, and that too at any level, and like at the local level, at the regional level, or at the national level. If I look at Bhubaneswar, it is local, and if I look at Odisha, the eastern region, if I look at other person, take into consideration the entire nations. So, on the basis of that, one thing that is to be seen, that the many countries, like your coal or textile or port or dock or railway or air transport, your P&T, postal and telegraphs industries, obviously one can find the existence of such union, and that in India. For example, you are talking of coal industry, the Indian National Mills Owners. Suppose you are talking of Surveyor Sardar Association functioning at the national level, is a prominent, I would say, craft union, and the Ahmedabad Textile Labor Association, covering the different crafts union of the textile industry located in Ahmedabad. So here also you will have to go for affiliation, and the affiliation of the primary unions, and many of the periphery unions that we are talking of, which are probably which are common links among themselves, and also they join together to form industrial federation. They join together to form regional federations, and seeking some kind of affiliation with the central federation. So that is why when we look at the primary unions in India, subsequently, or you may talk about something happening at the same time, simultaneously, maybe members of the regional federation and an industrial federation, or that too at the apex level, that is at the national level, can also be affiliated directly to a central federations, and and to see that the branch operating at the state level should also be taken into consideration. On the contrary, a union may remain totally independent without having any kind of affiliation. And in India, we have seen that the majority of these, I would say, the majority of the primary unions, they prefer to function, that they prefer to, you can say, operate independently, and that too at the local level, and must have been kept at the proper level, and being affiliated with the state level bodies, being affiliated with the central level bodies. Now coming to the federation, industrial federations. So here, the industrial federation constitute the second tier in the hierarchy of the structure of trade union movement, if we are talking of. And that too, and we are talking of trade union movement, that too in India. So workers who belong to a particular style of functioning, they may have some union movement in India. It cannot be free from that. So while the workers, those who belong to a particular industry, may have some common problems, so similarly attracting the those who come for the purpose, and we, since we have workers those who belong to a particular industry and may have some common problem, and that to attracting them to be resolved at this industrial level. And what we have seen, that in spite of the fact that the different trade unions may be functioning, that too in a different unit belonging to an industry to handle their local problems, but when they have some common problems, then in that case, which got across all the units, no doubt about it, but it is pertinent for them to come together, and that to resolve the problems effectively at the industry level. And hence, the order to handle these problems, when we go for, obviously, that is taken into consideration, that will be taken care of. So some of the plant level or some of the locality level uh, unions, what did they do? They joined together to form your federation of two levels, your namely regional level and the in national level. So in the Indian National Mine Workers Federation, or you talk about Indian National Iron and Steel Workers Federation, or you talk about Indian Railways, All India Railways Federation, and Indian National Defense also is a party to it, Super Worker Federation, are some of the examples of the industrial federation, those who are functioning at the national level. So, in addition to this example, which I told you just now, it is also learned that many times what we have noticed that even if we take necessary steps, but the fact remains that in addition to the examples which I cited above few minutes before, it is also seen that such industrial federations have been in operation in different other countries like cotton, textile, cement, engineering, sugar, plantation, even chemicals, bank, post, docks, everything at the national level. So that is why we have got UP, Chini, Mazdoor Federation and the Bihar Sugar Workers Federations. They are the examples of your regional level industrial federations, because after independence, a number of factors uh, like um, setting off of wage, and when you are talking of setting off of wage boards, what is the purpose? Purpose is fixation of wages in some industries so that the workers can have greater amount of reliance on the industry level collective bargaining, and formation of industrial committees, and increased scope of your consulting or consultants for so that you can well formulate the industrial committee and increase the scope of consultation for formulation and implementation. Unless labor policy is formulated, it cannot be implemented so far as labor policy in general is concerned, because that is going to pave the path for the formation and the formation of the on the organization, so that it is going to strengthen strengthening of the um, industrial federation. So the first national commission that on labor, taking a very positive note of the trend of formation and strengthening of the industrial federation in India, with an observation that formation of such national federations should be encouraged, as what we have seen that these will be more effective, and collective bargaining maybe forums and also has agencies to which why educational and the other aspect, that is your research activities for the benefit of the workers in the concerned industry would be entrusted. So we have industrial federations, and that too they are functioning at the regional level, may become a constituent of the national level industrial federation. So your regional federations, when we are talking of, in addition, can have affiliation with some national centers. But however, what we have observed these days that many of the regional industrial federations, what they are doing, uh, they have to look at the aspect that the regional industrial federation have preferred to remain independent without having any kind of linkage, without having any kind of, you can say, um, tie with the industrial federation, and that to national level, and or with the central federation. So at the same time, there was also other developments like making the business independent. So the All India Railways Federation have maintained their, when we are talking of independent existence. So All Indian Railwaymen Federation, they have maintained their own independence. So as a result of which, the All India Railway Federation and your Indian National Defence Workers Federations, they are the example of such type of independent federations. So in this case, when we are talking of the aspect, we have to see that what is all about your central federation, because your central federation of your trade union are at the apex of the structure of the trade union movement in India. So the primary unions or the regional federations or the industrial federations, they get themselves affiliated to these central federations, and that too, these affiliations according to their convenience. These affiliation according to their, you can say, political inclinations. So these federations, what they do, they coordinate the activities of the affiliates, and they provide guidance. They formulate broad policies of the unions, and they are all affiliated. They are all affiliated to them, and they give these policies a national character. So they come to the rescue of the affiliates whenever the latter face crisis. But however, I am of the opinion that it is these affiliates, they are the real center of trade union activities, and um, many times they are only loosely controlled by the central federations. So your central federation may come to rescue their affiliates whenever they are in difficulties. Maybe in the conduct of industrial disputes, by providing publicity or making the presentation more appealing, so you deficient project. So in that case, you appeal for funds, and political support you look for, so on and so forth. But in the actual conduct of your negotiation, and that to at a lower level, the role is extremely limited. So there are a number of central federations which are functioning in India, like we have got All India Trade Union Congress, AITUC. We have in Indian National Trade Union Congress, INTUC. We have Hind Mazdoor Sabha, HMS. We have got United Trade Union Congress, UTUC. So many trade unions are there, because the central federations, they are state branches, and consisting of the affiliates unions functioning within the your territorial jurisdiction of the state concerned. So the state branches, they can manage their own office, no doubt about it. They can manage their own affairs, no doubt about it, subject to uh, maybe some kind of provision of your broad guidelines coming from the central federation, which is required. So the central federation have their branches at the state level, and broadly speaking, the state level branches, they are very much free to manage their own affairs. But however, when we look at implementation in actual practice, these federations, they seek guidance, they seek guidance, they seek support of the central federation, and that too on, I would say, various issues. So if we look at the informal sector and its alternative forms of organizations, whatever discussions made till now, the foregoing discussions, they relate to the trade union structure and that too in the organized sector. That is, when I say organized sector, that is your formal sector, because organized sector and the formal sector, they account for, I would say, 7% only of the total labor force in India. So that is why the informal sector or the unorganized sector, they in fact account for nearly 93% of the country's working population. So in spite of having a very large majority of the workforce, the sector has been neglected, no doubt about it, by the trade union movement in the country. So it reminds me one significant feature of this sector is the predominance presence of the women labor. So one can also find the employment of your substantial number of child labor or even your migrant labor. So the sector is characterized by the absence of any form of employment security or any form of your payment of statutory minimum wages unless until forced through collective effort, which is uncommon through its interventions, if at all you are looking for intervention of the enforcement of the government, which is not effective. So in all these cases, what we have seen that we have to see that how best the government will come into picture. So now coming to the government of trade unions in India. So obviously the government of trade unions in India can be discussed at three levels. The first is your primary level unions, the second is your industry level federations, and the third is your central federations. When I look at the primary unions, as discussed earlier in my deliberation, I have already told you that the primary unions are the unions which function at the plant level. So obviously, in the plant level, it must cover the employees of one plant as members, employees of one plant, their size, because their size is usually small and they have a simple governing structure, and that governing structure comprising of, in fact, the executive committee and the general body, the primary unions, irrespective of their diversity in the basis of their organizations and whether they have any political affiliation or not, they usually have a very, very common pattern of governance, having two forums. So, as I told you, that the structure comprising of general body and the executive committee. So, in the general body, it is comprised of all the members of the unions, and these are the apex of the administrative structure. And the general body can meet as and when it is required to take guidance, to take advice, or approve any kind of decision as deemed proper taken by the executive committees. In addition to that, also, it has its own annual meeting where in which it elects its office bearers. Apart from the office bearers, there are also some other members to constitute the executive committee. So when we look at the executive committee, we have seen that the executive committee is vested with the administrative powers. That power is required to manage the day-to-day affairs of the union, and it usually comprises of a president and a few vice presidents. There must be a general secretary, there must be a treasurer and other members. So the General Secretary is the most powerful position, I would say, powerful position of the union. Because in some cases, the position of the president just as a figurehead, so far as union organization is concerned, but may be occupied. Sometimes also it may be occupied by an outsider. But then the vice president, however, is usually elected from the rank and file. So the decision relating to the routine day-to-day affairs and important issues, they are all taken by the Executive Council. And some of these decisions taken, they may be placed in the general body for its consideration and necessary approval to be accorded. So the executive committee may also have outsiders as office bearers, as we saw in case of primary unions also. And these are all subject to your limitations and the limitations provided for the trade union functioning in the different types of establishment under Section 22 of the Trade Union Act 1926. Now, the second level of government of trade union in India, that is your industry or industrial federation. And when you are talking of industrial federation, the same thing, it consists of three organs, the general body or the conference, and you have also the general council. And in all these cases, when we look at the general body of the conference, and the third aspect is your working committee. Because in general body conference, you have delegates, and the delegates who are elected by the affiliated unions, and they constitute the general body or conference. So as per the respective constitutions of the affiliated unions and their membership, the number of representatives is also elected, and as such it differs from union to union. So the general body elects its member to constitute the general council, to constitute the working committee. So the meeting of the general body should be held at least once in a year. And in addition, it can have special sessions, and keeping in view the urgency of the subject matter to be delivered. And it deals with policy matters, and always it prepares some kind of guidelines for the functioning of the general council and the working committee. So the now coming to the general council, this is also formed by the members elected by the general body. And since the number of members, those who are elected, they depends upon the membership of the affiliated unions. They depend on the size of the council is not the same, or all the federation is not the same, all the federation. So that is why it has to meet at least once in a year, and that is why the general council looks after the functioning of the working committee. And if you look at the working committee also comprising of different office bearers like president, vice president, general secretary, treasurer, and other members, those who are elected by the general body meeting. Similarly, you have also the central federation, and in the central federations, almost you have it is a you will find that it is a three-tier administrative structure consisting of your annual delegates meetings, general councils, you have working committees, and annual delegates meeting. So the annual delegates meeting, which is also called as annual conference, that is all attended by the delegates who are elected by their respective affiliated unions. So similarly, the case of the general council, and similarly the case of working committee, because in case of working committee, the day-to-day management of the center is very much vested on the working committee, which comprises of your different office bearer and other members. And apart from looking after the routine day-to-day function, it has also a duty to carry out the resolution, those resolutions which has been adopted in the annual delegates meetings or in the general council. and that is also to be taken care of by the working committee. So with this note, we come to an end of today's session. I thank everybody for the session, and wish that tomorrow again at 1:30 we'll be meeting with a fresh new session. Thank you very much. Have a nice time. Good day.